We're planting tomatoes today using some rock phosphate and some whole grain cornmeal, some unusual items that will greatly increase the productivity of your tomato plants. And later on we're going to plant melons in a very interesting way suggested by our good friend Clint at gardenfrugal.com. All that and a whole lot more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. This program was funded by the following.
At dollarseed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit dollarseed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. Dollarseed.com. What could be healthier?
Willow Springs Soap Company is a locally owned Colorado business just a stone's throw away from the Rocky Mountains. Their handmade soap is made from simple, recognizable ingredients, which lead to a more natural, earth-friendly, long-lasting, and hard bar with a wonderful creamy lather. They make soap using the cold kettle process with a specially formulated recipe of 100% vegetable oils. They use traditional methods that produce a true soap instead of the commercial synthetic alternatives that can dry out skin. Go to www.willowspringssoap.com to get a fresh and natural clean, handmade in the Rockies.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener supports the following. Hunger Task Force believes that every person has the right to adequate food obtained with dignity. They're providing food for people in need. With their 151-acre working farm and fish hatchery in Franklin, Wisconsin, volunteers are needed daily. You could plant seeds in the greenhouse, ride the transplanter, or you can make an instant $10 donation from your mobile device by texting food to 52,000. For more information on how you can help end hunger, visit hungertaskforce.org. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. This show is dedicated to the average gardener, simple home living, and using what you already have. Well, it's that time of year here in Wisconsin to get your tomatoes in the ground. So what we're going to do, there's a couple different ways to go about planting your tomatoes. Now we've got 29 locations here in the garden, and we found out we've got a lot more tomatoes than we have locations for, which is fine. We can give to friends and family, and also if one or two of these doesn't make it, we can always replant them. So what we've done here, we've gone two different routes. On the far end there, we've flipped the soil over, and on the closer end here, we've just located where we were going to plant our tomatoes, dug a hole, double dug our hole, and then we're going to plant our tomatoes, leaving the external area unflipped. Well, for two reasons. One, you're going to have weeds grow up there anyway, and two, you're going to have compaction when you walk through to pick your produce. So we felt it really wasn't efficient to go ahead and flip all that soil that wasn't unneeded to be flipped, just the core area where we're going to plant our tomatoes. So we've got our hole dug here, and I've got a organic purple Cherokee tomato here that we started from seed back in February. So I'm just going to loosen all the roots up there, and as you can see, we've got a good little root ball there. And I'm going to plant it a little bit lower than the soil level. That's the benefit with tomato plants. You can plant them virtually up to that very top level of leaves. We're not going to quite go that far, but we are going to plant it deep. Now this particular tomato plant, let's see here, I had replanted in that cup and rolled that bottom portion up and placed in the bottom, and you can see all the fibrous root growth that's on that tomato plant. And the more roots you can get on that plant, the more nutrition will get to that fruit, and the better the plant will produce. So we're just going to roll that, since the roots are very flexible, we're going to roll that root up. But before we do that, we're going to put a handful of rock phosphate. Now what does rock phosphate do? Rock phosphate helps balance the pH level and actually doubles the production of your crop. So we're going to do that because we want to double our production. So we want to plant this thing deep, and that's what we're doing, but you never want to cover any of the leaves up. You always want to pinch those off and get rid of them, because that will rob the soil of nitrogen if you do that, and it will hurt the growth of your plant. So we're just going to cover this one up here. Break all these big clods up here. Now you're going to get, once you plant your tomatoes, if you haven't already, you're going to see them wilt. And it's not because they're sick or they're going to die or anything. That's just the natural shock that the plant goes through in being planted in a different location than where it was originally started. So now that we've got that one, we'll take the cage and put it around it. Now these cages, you can stake these with a fence post or a wood stake or whatever. And these tomato plants should get, with the rock phosphate, and we're going to apply some whole grain cornmeal around to prevent blight from forming. That's the yellow leaf. That's what causes the little yellow leaves at the bottom of the plant to progressively eat your plant up. These things should get 5, 6, 7, 8 feet tall. Now I know what you're thinking, well, this dinky little tomato cage is not going to work for that. I understand that. So what we'll do is, we have a lot of extra tomato cages, and as the tomato gets bigger, we can basically turn a small tomato cage into a larger tomato cage. Why are we doing this? Because the show is about using what you already have, and that's what we have. We found over 100 of these in the junk over the last 2 years, so we're going to use what we've got. So let me get a couple more of these planted over here. This is a black tomato, and I'll show you the uniqueness of tomato plants. Now I was maneuvering these around and I broke it off from the actual stem, which in any other situation or any other vegetable or fruit, your plant's dead. But as you can see here, I've already got root fibers beginning to form on that stalk that was exposed out of the soil. And here I've got a lot of little nubbins, what should look like kind of like warts. And those are all going to be root fibers that will develop. So I'm not concerned that it broke off. I'm just going to go ahead and bury this thing in the ground with the rock phosphate, put the cornmeal around it, water it in good, and it'll be fine. So I've got a hole nice and deep here. I'm going to take this leaf off because that'll be too deep. And I'm going to take the rock phosphate here, put a handful in the bottom of the hole, and that's all you need. You want the roots to grow through it, and I'm just going to cover this up with some loose soil. Get rid of them clods there. And it'll be fine. No concern at all with that. I've broke them off while maneuvering them around the house, threw them back in a pot of soil, and they took off just fine. Now also with the way we're planting them in this portion of the garden, with being each individual area dug up and then the center portions not dug, it creates a little cavern, a little hole where the tomato plant's going to grow, which is beneficial because when it rains, a lot of that water is going to be able to drain into that hole and drain down and give that plant a lot of water and nutrition that it needs. So let me go ahead and plant a few more here. As you can see with the one we just planted, it is wilted. There's no concern with that. It's just the natural shock of being moved to a different location and being transplanted. So this one here is another organic, this is organic Cherokee purple. Now this is a long stocky one. All these we started middle of February inside. So I had to move it to a soda bottle to get more root development because it was getting way bigger than I could handle. So there's another way of planting tomatoes besides just planting them deep. Now first of all, okay, there we go. All that's good soil there. With it being stringy and long, that's the root ball. I'm just going to loosen that root ball up. Okay, so you can actually, what they call, trench the tomato. I'm going to pinch these two top ones off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a trench. Here's where we're going to plant it. And I'm just going to literally lay the tomato in the ground like this. I'm going to put a little rock phosphate where that root base is going to go. I'm going to lay it in there, bend that top up, and I'm just going to cover it up. And what that does is, that's another way of going about it besides digging a deep hole. All that root, all that stalk will turn into root fibers like you've seen earlier, and it will grow just fine like a normal tomato plant. This will continue to grow upwards, and there'll be no problem with the production of that plant at all. We'll put a cage around it, and we'll be good to go. There's a bunch of varieties of peppers you can plant in your garden. Everything from hot, super hot peppers to mild bell peppers. And whether you pick them up at your local home and garden center or you start them from seed like we have, either way is acceptable as long as you're growing your own food in your garden, patio, deck, or porch. So unlike the tomato plants where you could plant them extremely deep, you don't want to do that with pepper plants because the pepper plants will not grow roots on their stalk. They'll simply, it'll actually hamper the growth of the pepper plant. So all you're going to do is dig a hole where you're going to put the pepper plant. Make sure you've got a good pH balanced soil of about 7.0. You can add organic fertilizer to your soil if you wish, or good compost. And you're simply just going to plant it in full sun to the base of where it is in the pot or container, and just cover it up and water it in real good. Now we've got, this was a sweet yellow pepper, we've got a cayenne pepper, we've got some bell peppers, there's another sweet pepper, and they're all, you plant them all the same. So let me get them all planted and we'll come back and I'll tell you a little secret about peppers. The unique thing about peppers, if done properly, you can overwinter them. Now, obviously, it's much easier if you grow them in a container on your porch, patio, deck, or in the backyard. But you can extract these from the ground in the late fall before it gets cold, and you can overwinter them. Now, we tried that this year. We were unsuccessful with it, but that doesn't mean we failed at it. You're going to have peppers that won't survive through the winter. And the hotter the pepper is, the better chance you have of overwintering that pepper. So this year, when you plant your peppers, think about how you can maybe overwinter them come this winter. Watering your plants can be a backbreaking experience if you've got a lot to water. Well, this reusable ideal came from our friends at YouTube channel Field 16. Now what they'll do is they'll take a kitty litter jug in this instance and they'll drill 3 holes in the bottom of it and set beside the plant that they're watering. One, it doesn't splash water up on the leaves and the soil up on the leaves, which is not always a good thing for the plants you're watering. And 2, you don't have to spend all afternoon going from plant to watering. Well, you can also take a milk jug or a water jug, cut a hole in the bottom or drill a hole and set it beside the plant you're watering. We'll take the top off there so it'll flow better, and it goes directly to the root ball of whatever you're watering. You don't have to stand with a watering can. You can continue on doing other garden activities. And you can also put rocks in the bottom of your jug so when it's empty, it doesn't fly all over the yard and into your neighbor's yard. So thank you, Field 16. And if you want to know more about what Field 16 on YouTube is doing, you can visit them through our webpage. And that's the same name as our show, theWisconsinVegetableGardener.com. This may look like some kind of cage that you would have chickens in. Well, it's not. It's our melon cage. Something similar to that. We're going to try to grow all of our melons, pumpkins, cantaloupe, watermelon in this area. What we've got here is I've got 2 sections of green rubber coated fencing, or about 2 foot in height, I've wrapped around that we found, so that was zero expense. I got 4 fence posts that I found, which was zero expense. And I made this shelf trellis, which we grew pumpkins on last year. We had one pumpkin that grew on the top shelf. It was about a 2-pound pumpkin, and it needs a little tweaking, and we kind of worked on that. And it's very efficient to where you don't have vines growing all over your yard. They'll grow up, and the ideal is to bear fruit on the shelf here. Well, this segment is mainly about our self-watering containers, and that comes from our good friend Clint from gardenfrugal.com. He has had a video out how he made these self-watering containers out of these storage tubs. And if you want to see that video, it's very well done. You can find that link on our webpage underneath the show notes for this show, and it's the same name as the name of our show, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. And he's done an excellent video on how to construct one of these self-watering containers out of virtually, he made it out of about $10 worth of stuff that he picked up at his local home hardware store. Now, you can make them a little cheaper depending on how and what you have already available. For example, this one here, this is a 10-gallon storage container that we had in the attic. We'd lost the lid, so I found a lid in the garbage, and it doesn't quite fit, but with our good friend duct tape, it works well, and we'll use that one. The ones that he uses are the 18-gallon ones, and we picked 2 of them up for $7 a piece at our local big box store. So let's go over and I'll show you how he does it, and then I'll show you kind of the things that you can maybe substitute so you can make your own self-watering container for your melons. So here is the basic construction of how to make a self-watering container. I'm just going to walk you through. I do encourage you to go check out Clint's video. He does a very in-depth video. It's not too long, and it's well worth watching. Now, if you've ever looked at a self-watering container at your local home improvement store or garden center, we looked at one 2 days ago for $65, and it wasn't nearly as elaborate as what we have here. So you get your storage tub, and you take and cut your lid out, and you'll put your lid on top. But before you get to do that, now what Clint did was he took corrugated black pipe and used that as a base, because you have to have a base here for your soil, and then underneath there is your reservoir for your water. So what he did, he took black corrugated pipe and with holes in it, and then went ahead and used that. Well, we just happen to have a bunch of these juice containers, very sturdy ones, the ones that the lizard's on, and I took and cut the top portion off, and then took that lip, and I didn't throw it away, I just reinserted it for more structural support, and I drilled 1/2-inch holes in the bottle so I could have more water storage in the base. And then also you can take your corrugated pipe or your soda or your juice bottles, and you want to extend these up a little higher, because this is what the soil will actually go down and the water will wick up, because this whole system is a wick function where the water will wick up to the roots of the plants will get what it needs, and then everybody's happy. Well, the holes that are drilled here are simply for if there's water penetrates the top through rain or overwatering. When you water your base, it has somewhere to go. It doesn't sit in the bottom and just make everything all sloppy. And also on the side we have overflow, a 1/4-inch hole for the overflow, so you know when it's full. Well, Clint uses a piece of PVC pipe that he purchased from his local home improvement store, and that's fine if you have that, or if you have that laying around. Well, what we had laying around was a bunch of pipes off vacuum cleaners that we've recycled, so that works really well. You want to take a 45-degree cut, so when it sits in the bottom of the container, it doesn't get stuck at the bottom and no water gets out. So you want to have that 45 in there so the water will flow freely. And you'll just stick that in the corner. So let me get this, and then you'll have your, you can fill this with a hose or a jug. So let me get this all situated here. And you want to get your corrugated pipe or your juice bottles. You want 4 in the bottom, as you see here. And then you want to take your top portion and set over top of it. to where the soil is going to set on, the soil will set in these pipes, in these bottles, and then all the way up to the top here, and that wicking action will take place. So we'll put our drain pipe in here, and that'll set there. So let me get this lid off here. Now, you're going to have a gap depending on what type of storage tub you use. You'll probably have a little gap here. All you want to do is just take some newspaper, roll it up, and just lay it right along the edge there to where it'll plug the holes. Now you're obviously going to get some soil that will go down in that water reservoir, and that's not a big deal. And we'll get around this pipe here is important. Alright, so now we've got all the holes plugged. We want to fill this with soil. We'll get that over to the side for right now. So you just use your, I'm using potting mix from the garden center. And with an 18-gallon tub, you're going to have about 5 gallons of water storage. So we'll just go ahead and fill this up. And I'm going to fill it halfway, and then when you get it about halfway full, you want to stop and take and compress it down. Now you don't want to, you want some compression because you want that water to be able to wick up like a candle. So I'm going to get the paper tucked around the edges, and then where those bottles are at, I want to make sure the bottles get filled solid, because that's going to be the key element to this self-watering, is to get that water to soak up through them bottles. So that's good. Tuck more around that pipe there. And you can see there's a lot of fluff in this, but you want to get some compression. You don't want to jump on it, but you want it to be a firm base. So let's add a little bit more here. And with what these tubs cost us and the free items that we already had in the house, we made ours, including the cost of the soil, for about $11 a piece. And if you figure on how much a watermelon or cantaloupe or canary melons or Pride of Wisconsin muskmelons cost, $11, you're going to reap that in the benefits of the fruit you grow very quickly. Okay, so we're almost got it. You want to go almost to the top here. So let me put a little more potting soil. And we also got this potting soil on sale for $2 less with a 20% and a 20% off coupon. So you can't get any better than that. Okay, now that's about 2 inches from the top, and that's pretty close to where we want it. All right, put a little bit more. There. Okay, so you can plant just like this, but the benefits of the self-watering container would be hampered because there'd be a lot of moisture that would evaporate out of the top of your container. So Clint has came up with another ideal. You can take a black garbage bag or a white garbage bag, or you can take the bag that your potting soil came in, cut it in half, and you cover the top of your self-watering container. I'm going to cover that pipe up right now, and it works just the same as a garbage bag. And what this does is this prevents a lot of excess evaporation to come out or to wick out of your soil. Now you could trim this down to make it look pretty, but it doesn't bother me very much. But I do want to cut a hole here for my water spout here. So now I know where it's at. I'm going to go ahead and feed it through. All right. Get that all situated. And for this, you could, if you want to do tomatoes, you could probably, I would recommend 1 tomato, but you could probably get away with 2 tomatoes. When we plant our melons, we're probably going to go 3 to 6 melons because we know we're going to have a lot of moisture. And I think we'll be safe on that. Now, to fill this up, you can take a hose and you can just put it in the pipe there until you see water come out the overflow that we have over here. Or if you have to bucket water in, you can take a soda bottle, cut it in half or cut the bottom off of it, place it in there, and go ahead and fill your self-watering container up. And then when the water starts rolling out the overflow, about 5 gallons later, you'll know it's full. Now you'll want to watch this the first time you do it, because the soil is going to soak up more water because it is on the drier side than it would be when it's fully moist. So thank you, Clint, for the great idea. And now you can have melons, cantaloupe, pumpkins, and you know they're going to be watered properly. Well, that's all the time we have. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Putting some whole grain cornmeal around the base of our tomato plants we just planted to prevent blight, that yellowness that your plant experiences through the growing season. Just doesn't look good, and it's just not healthy for the plant either. And planting those pepper plants, just remember you want to plant them at the depth that they come in the container versus the tomato plants where you can plant them extremely deep or plant them in the trench method. For all of us here at the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, I'm Joy Bear, encouraging you, take a child gardening and start growing some memories.
The show never ends on our Facebook page. Keyword Wisconsin Vegetable Gardeners. Like the page and continue the discussion there. You can now follow us on Twitter, see what we're up to and what we're doing at the garden. The address, the W-I Veg Gardener, G-A-R-D-E-N-R. You can email us at thewiveggardener@gmail.com with your questions, comments, or suggestions about the show. This program was funded by the following.
At dollarseed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit dollarseed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. Dollarseed.com. What could be healthier?
Willow Springs Soap Company is a locally owned Colorado business just a stone's throw away from the Rocky Mountains. Their handmade soap is made from simple, recognizable ingredients, which lead to a more natural, earth-friendly, long-lasting, and hard bar with a wonderful creamy lather. They make soap using the cold kettle process with a specially formulated recipe of 100% vegetable oils. They use traditional methods that produce a true soap instead of the commercial synthetic alternatives that can dry out skin. Go to www.willowspringssoap.com to get a fresh and natural clean, handmade in the Rockies.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener supports the following. Hunger Task Force believes that every person has the right to adequate food obtained with dignity. They're providing food for people in need. With their 151-acre working farm and fish hatchery in Franklin, Wisconsin, volunteers are needed daily. You could plant seeds in the greenhouse, ride the transplanter, or you can make an instant $10 donation from your mobile device by texting food to 52,000. For more information on how you can help end hunger, visit hungertaskforce.org.